So we're in St. Mary's Church, Stuart. Where did this all begin for you, this story?
Well, my father, really. My father's a retired bricklayer, very proud working class man from Talbot, and that's where Dic Penderyn is buried. And he actually repointed the walls of this church back in the 80s, it would have been about mid to late 80s. And it was my bread and butter really growing up. You know, the story was drilled into me from a young age, and I always sort of harbored this belief that it lended itself to a dramatic retelling. There's always been the storyteller in me, and that's where it all started really, about 40 years ago.
Amazing. Because your background, as you say, you know, it's the storytelling.
Yeah.
You know, you've trained as an actor. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, coming from Talbot again, you know, it was very much a realistic vision and dream, I suppose. You know, not a narcissistic one, I don't think. I do have a passion for storytelling, but when you hear stories, like I remember my grandfather telling me about going to school with Richard Burton, or Richard Jenkins as he was then. My uncle tells another story about how Anthony Hopkins once babysat him. I don't know if there's much truth in that though. He bends the truth a bit on that. But and then of course the late Myrick Sheen, Michael's father, was a profoundly positive influence on my life. He set up the first out of school drama group in Talbot, and Ken Tucker, who helped extensively with the stage play as well and helping sort of advising me, was Michael's drama teacher. So when they were telling me stories about Michael over in Hollywood, making films with Julia Roberts, so I would have been 13 years old then. They were just very, very real stories. It never seemed like a pipe dream or anything of that sort. So, but yeah, like I said, it wasn't for me very much. It's never been about fame or fortune, certainly, and certainly not with this project. And certainly not a narcissistic dream. I mean, I think all us performers, we're driven a little bit by ego, otherwise why would we get up and perform, you know? But yes, I've got a passion for storytelling.
So it's in your blood, really. It's kind of been born into you, would you say?
Yeah, very much so. I think most people from Wales, aren't we? I think Burton said, and we're all actors. It's just the bad ones who end up making a living out of it. Yeah, but absolutely. All of us Welsh people have got that sort of innate passion to tell stories.
What is it particularly about this story of Dic Penderyn that really struck your heart?
That's a really good question. It's got it all, you know. I think what Dic Penderyn represents now, especially with the parallels we're seeing in today's society, is there's courage there, there's love, honour, betrayal. Like I said, from the first moment I learned the story as a boy, it always struck me that it lends itself to a dramatic retelling. And it's been really important to me as well throughout this journey that stands to reason you're going to have to lend a little bit from poetic license, but I want to make it as historically accurate as possible. And I think it's what Dic Penderyn represents, that sacrifice and fighting, sticking up for what's right and bringing people together, you know, how our ancestors came together and fought and died, not just Dic Penderyn, but the other workers who were shot dead on the 3rd of June 1831, just standing up for basic human rights.
And miscarriages of justice in Wales is very much a big kind of topic, but Dic Penderyn was kind of the first sort of Welsh martyr, you could say, who really paid the ultimate price.
Yeah, he did, and the fact that he's still considered a guilty man in the eyes of the law, with all the evidence, which of course is woven throughout that story. You know, the subsequent evidence after his wrongful execution, the deathbed confession of Ianto Parker, that he committed the crime Richard Lewis was hanged for, the confession by James Abbott, the special constable and witness at the trial of Dic Penderyn, that he committed perjury and lied under oath. I mean, these are all incredible facets to the story of Iniquity, but it makes you beg a belief that pardon hasn't been granted yet. But I do believe with the awareness that we can bring now through our film, it's only going to just swell and blossom with support, and it's a matter of time before that pardon comes in.
Absolutely. So you've got an amazing amount of support online. The socials are really kind of kicking off, and you're having some posts go viral, 1.5 million views.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
It just shows me what, I suppose, I think not just me, but everyone involved in this incredible project has known all along that there's an appetite for this story. There's tangible hiraeth, and people who know the difference between right and wrong, and are passionately proud and patriotic about these miscarriages of justice, about our heroes through history. And again, I've always sort of said as well throughout this journey that our Celtic cousins seem to sing loud and proud about their heroes through history. And I don't know what it is about us Welsh. We've got some incredible stories. And now hopefully with Calon Films, Iniquity will be the first of many we can use that platform to tell to the world. And yeah, like I said, the opportunity to do that with Iniquity, with Richard Lewis's story as the debut feature for Calon Films, is going to be something really special.
I believe so as well. So take us back to your journey when you first sort of started embarking on this project, because it's had a few iterations, hasn't it? You've been to Edinburgh Theatre Festival.
Yeah, but even prior to that, really. So over a glass of wine, as often the best conversations start, right? I've always told the story of Dic Penderyn to anyone who listened to it. You know, actor friends of mine. I've been lucky enough to travel a little bit in my 20s. Spent some time in London, treading the boards, lived in France, lived in Italy. And yeah, anyone who would listen, really, I would just tell them all the characters, all the parts, and the story, and give them the full unabridged version. And then Michael Sheen came back home to Talbot in 2011, put on his street theatre performance of The Passion, which of course Ken, I mentioned earlier, was involved in, his father Myrick was involved in, and many other friends, actor friends of mine, were all involved. And I was currently living in London at the time, but I came back for that Easter weekend and seeing the town come together. And of course, Michael, with his presence, his voice, his platform, had that ability to galvanise people, and it was inspirational. And that, I suppose, for me was without even realising it, that was the initial spark back in 2011. And then it was around 2017, again, I was telling friends and family members the story, anyone who would listen, really, telling them the story. And yeah, I was just inspired by them. They said to me, you know it so well, you're so passionate about it, why don't you do it? And it started from there, really. It was that was the initial spark of what became the Iniquity Camworth project, which was like a community arts vehicle. It blossomed, and much like our ancestors, it really brought people together, much like the Passion of Talbot did. We put on a series of open to attend workshops, free to attend, and that all coincided as well with the global pandemic. So there's so much going on globally, and again, that rich-poor divide, what was going on in Westminster with all the secret parties, and people being separated from their loved ones. And well, actually, the historian, the late Stefan Ap Dafydd, who the play is dedicated to, passed away during the pandemic, and we dedicated, as I said, the play to his memory. When we were coming out of the lockdowns, we performed the world premiere in 2021 and secured a really unique selling point. Coincidentally, a lot of things have happened actually with this project, Danielle, right? That they can't just be coincidence. It really does feel like the stars are aligning. And we were the first indoor theatrical event staged in Wales post-pandemic. Took it on a tour of Wales, obviously back to Merthyr and to the Red House before that theatre sadly closed. And it's my dream to have the world premiere of the film in the Red House on Penderyn Square, where those events happened in 1831. And on the back of the success that we had, taking it then to Edinburgh, to the Fringe, again, first in-person Fringe in 2022, the 75th Fringe, won an award. The vast majority of our sellout audiences were Americans. They dubbed it the Welsh Braveheart, which I don't like that moniker because ours is better and more historically accurate. And but yeah, it seemed to ring a bell, and it again proved that there's an appetite globally for this story. The themes are universal; they transcend borders, and yeah, on the back of that success and exposure it gave us at the Fringe, so when Chris Crowe, our director, reached out to me and said, "Look, I love what you're doing. Have you ever thought about adapting this into a film?"
Incredible! What a journey it's been on. But talk us through the process of you're going from it's a theatre project and it's going to become a screen project. as a writer myself, I understand that is that's a very different kind of trajectory to go down. But talk us through that and what it means to you that this is going to be an actual screen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never professed to being a writer, and I'm certainly not a screenwriter. So when Chris first approached me, I mean, similarly with the community arts vehicle and the stage play, this story has a tendency and just has a natural and innate ability to bring people together. And Chris, as well as our producer Mike, have been so generous with their knowledge, their enthusiasm, their passion as well for the story. So I collaborated with Chris, writing the screenplay is a very new genre and format for me. And he was incredibly supportive of that. And that mantle has been passed on. Now that we've started securing funding to Lowry Glane, who's been employed as script doctor, just about to sign off on draft 12, which, I mean, I'm really happy with it. Needless to say, I'm biased, but it's going to change the landscape of Welsh cinema. I can assure you that. Mark my words. We mentioned Braveheart there, right? You go anywhere in the Western world and you ask anyone what's the first word they think of when you think of Scottish cinema, and they'll say Braveheart. Likewise, give it 5-10 years and you say Welsh cinema and people will say Iniquity.
Wow. Very exciting times to come. But tell me why you think that you were the right person to write Iniquity.
That's a great question.
Because it's a very personal thing,
isn't it? Yeah. I'm very passionate. And I've questioned, I've had a lot of sit-down conversations with myself, because you do. Well, why am I doing this? Well, why am I drawn to this story? What does it mean to me? And you question, am I doing it for myself? Am I doing it for Dic Penderyn? Am I doing it to bring people together? I know I'm doing it for the right reasons, but you are right as well. I think that the stars are certainly aligning. The church we're sat in right now was closed by the church in Wales almost 2 years ago now. It's going through that process of being declared redundant as a place of worship. And I've joined a steering committee, which is in the process of registering as a charity. I was elected onto that body to repurpose this building, which is a beautiful building, but unfortunately needs a lot of structural repairs, as a Dic Penderyn Visitor Centre, an arts and heritage visitor centre, to give the community of Aberavon and Wales something to be proud of. And the story as well is woven throughout South Wales. You've got Cardiff, where you're from, and St Mary's Street, where Dic Penderyn lost his life in 1831. You've got Penderyn Square, Cyfarth the Castle, the ironworks, right through to where he's buried. Let's create a Dic Penderyn trail going through Wales, because obviously I do firmly believe that this film will sell around the world. And it's not about money. It's never been about money for me. But people will want to see it, and it will go global. And it's going to bring a lot of footfall through film-induced tourism to Wales. Senedd need to jump on it.
Absolutely, they do. Can you give us a little snippet of what is going to be shown in the script? So give us maybe just 3 things. Just give us, tease us just a little bit.
Okay.
We all love a tease.
Well, the film is going to change the landscape of Welsh cinema forevermore. It doesn't open in Wales. It opens in Oak Hill, Ohio, in America, in 1831. We are going to open with the deathbed confession of Ianto Parker. Gosh. And we close with that as well.
Wow.
So it bookends the story.
Bookends, absolutely. Gosh.
I don't want to give away too much.
No,
I mean,
course,
the story's there. It's in the public domain for anyone who would want to research it.
Tell us some of the universal themes. For those who are listening to this and watching this for the first time, what are the universal themes that will translate across the world?
I'm not ashamed to say, right, that I was writing on draft 12 the other night, just quietly in my study, and I was listening to some music whilst I was doing so. I was writing a scene where a mother loses her child, and I just burst into tears as I was writing it. I've recently become a father, and that overwhelming love and sense of responsibility that is thrust upon you and is a complete game changer to your life. And what our ancestors, as I keep saying, we were up in Big Pit today, and thinking about the children as young as 7 years old were sent underground to work. And that was considered the norm. And for then But then that, though, we live in a very divisive society. Politically, I think social media sometimes has its good points, but also it gives a platform for certain voices that, I'm not about censorship, but there are some people who shouldn't have platforms with the rhetoric that they've got and the message that they're trying to convey, and it does divide society, and that just lends itself to corruption. It lends itself to an unequal, unfair society, and you find throughout history what we can learn from sharing these stories through history is that during moments of great tragedy, during moments of extreme deprivation, poverty, pestilence, disease, suffrage, it brings people together. So even though I burst into tears right in that scene where the child dies and the mother discovers her child dead in the cottage, it really got me on a personal level. The result of that extreme heartbreak was brought people together to want to create a better society, because that's how we can do it. It's the only way, much like our ancestors, it's the only way we'll create a better society, is by people coming together.
And it's those personal stories, isn't it? It's the shared heartbreak, it's the shared trauma. We've all experienced that on some degree in our lives. And I do think that films that have that in them, that have that sort of emotional, heartfelt pull, are the ones that really can make a huge difference in society.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm a great fan of Mike Leigh's work, but I was up in Newport earlier as well before we went to Big Pit, speaking with members of the Newport Rising Festival, which I'm going to be speaking at now later this year. And because the synergies are self-evident with what happened in Merthyr and then the Chartist movement thereafter. And the film by Mike Leigh, Peterloo, came up. Great film, great body of work, but we both agreed, the gentleman that I was speaking to and I, that it felt like a bit of a history lesson at times. Great performances, great script, it's visually stunning. When you're telling these stories, you have to, as I said, lend a little bit from poetic license. You have to find that balance between making it historically accurate, which I do believe that we've achieved with Iniquity, but also making it compellingly interesting as well, and entertaining and thought-provoking and emotional provoking. Which, for me, the story of Dic Penderyn ticks all those boxes anyway. And I do believe that with our film now, we're going to do that story justice on all of those levels.
Exciting times. So just tell us, what can we do now to support, before you head now into principal photography?
Yeah.
Tell everyone what you can do to support this incredible project.
I want to bring the whole of Wales behind this. Of course, our budget will only stretch so far, but I want to make this as an accessible opportunity. Our four pillars. When I launched Calon Films, I thought about what was the message I wanted to convey. And it's not a gimmick. We will stand by these pillars: hiraeth, opportunity, passion, and equality, or hope. When I was writing the script, before we'd partnered with Sterling Pictures and Mike, I was looking at independent production companies, looking at their format, how they're set up, before I'd even launched Companies House. And they all say the same thing on their submissions or contact forms: we do not accept unsolicited scripts. And I get it. They don't want to be flooded with all the voices out there that want a platform or to crave a platform. We're not going to do that with Calon Films. We're going to make it as open and as accessible to everyone as possible. We're going to stick true to our pillars. Needless to say, we need to manage that in some capacity. It's all well and good me saying that, but then the other guys on the team, sometimes they're going to reel me in and say, okay, but let's think about this logistically. There's another story attached to that, actually, about the auditions, which you know about that. We'll get to that though. But what we're just saying, look, give us your story in a 3-page synopsis. We promise we'll read it. It has to be Welsh-centric. And by that, I don't just mean set in Wales. It has to be ingrained in what is considered to be Welsh. And we'll consider it. We'll consider every voice out there. And then if we want to take it on to that next stage, then we will ask for the full script. And we'll go through that sort of pitching process ourselves. Goes without saying, at the moment, all of our efforts are going into Iniquity. It's our debut feature. So yeah, principal photography is aiming for May this year. I'd love it to be the 28th of May. So I've told you about the illumination campaign, haven't I?
I don't think you have, no.
Right, okay, so this is a beautiful, beautiful premise, and Chris Crow's vision for this in the film is absolutely stunning. On the 28th of May, 1831, the unions had been forming secretly in hilltops, in the valleys, in barnyards, where the workers were coming together and having these secret meetings. And what really angered the authorities at the time is they could be conversed in what was considered to them a foreign tongue, Welsh. And but in order to gauge the numbers they had and the strength of support that they had, much like what we're doing now with Iniquity, was they asked the working class people who were in favour of change in society to just light a candle and put it in their cottage windows. And South Wales lit up. And that campaign was launched. It was called the Illumination Campaign, and it was launched on the 28th of May, 1831. On the 3rd of June, about 12,500 workers and their families marched into the town of Merthyr and demanded basic human rights, and that was the Merthyr Uprising. So yeah, I would love, the romantic in me would love to do 28th of May as the day of principal photography.
What an absolutely beautiful visual you've just described there.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you this afternoon, Stuart, and I really do believe in your passion and that this film will change the Welsh film landscape. So
it really will.
Stay tuned, and there's so much more goodness to come.